Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make these kind of retro leg warmers. They've got a cuff for the bottom of where the ankle is, and then it comes out a little bit for the leg itself, and then I've done a kind of a cuff at the top so that it sits more snug around just under your knee, or whichever length you decide to make it. Some people like them shorter and others like them longer, but we increase to come out in the side here. Now I've just done this in kind of a plain stitch because there are times when the yarn is the star, and because it's fluffy, this yarn's the star of the show really, so it doesn't need a fancy stitch because it's just fluffy. If it's a plain yarn, then maybe the stitch is more important, but I think I like it to be nice and kind of closely crocheted so it's warm. And plus then you just see the fluffy yarn. So you might not be able to get hold of this because obviously I bought this yarn in the UK and a little while ago at that, so but you can use an equivalent. Now the yarn that I've chosen, I had in my stash, it's just Heritage Super Soft Luxury Yarn, 100-gram ball of knitting yarn, and I got this in a store over here called B&M, but I got it quite some time ago. Now it's hard to read that, so I've written down what it is just so that you can try and get some equivalent. Now this is 53% acrylic and 38% polyamide and 9% polyester, so it's extremely soft. There's 180 meters in each ball. I'm using two shades just in case you do have this. I'm using 005 and 002. Sorry, that's A005 and A002. So it's just basically blue and grey. I did have a few other colours. Got a red one somewhere, but I'm not sure where that is at the moment. But this is really squishy. Now, if you look at the strand, I would say the yarn itself would be a 4 weight, but because it's quite fluffy and hairy, it takes it to a bulky 5, which in the UK is a chunky, but it's not an ultra thick chunky. And because of that, I'm using a 5.5mm crochet hook. I'm using this Susan Bates hook because at the moment I'm trialing these. And you'll also need, to stab myself with them, a pair of scissors and a darning needle. Don't get many ends. Can crochet the ends in quite well, but you will get one at the front here when we make the cuff, and it will just need to sew the other side of the cuff together, and you'll have one at this end, but the rest you can kind of just crochet in as we go, which is a brilliant thing. I love that. So I'm going to do mine exactly the same, obviously, so I want to be a matching pair, and I'm going to use the blue yarn first. I think this is, I thought I had one that was already started on the ball, but it's not. So we're going to make this with foundation treble crochet. That's a UK term, so they're foundation double crochet in the US, and I've used these before in a couple of other things, so those of you that are familiar with my channel will be used to them, but if you're not, I'll show you how to do them. Now it is harder to see to do them with a fluffy yarn, so I'll show you ways how we can get around certain things. So I'm going to leave a very long tail because there's that little bit of sewing up that I mentioned earlier, so you want to be able to use that yarn rather than thread a needle and try and attach yarn. You might as well just use the tail. So you need to make a slip knot. However you make yours, that's fine. Just make your slip knot, and then we're going to chain up 2. So it's yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through. We just have 2. So now I'm going to show you how to do the foundation treble crochet, or foundation double for the US. If you've not seen that before, you yarn over and you go into the very first chain that you've made, this one here, and you want to go in 2 loops of that stitch. I made the mistake when I first started doing this of going through 1, and nobody ever said in the video that I was watching, nobody ever said make sure you go through 2, and it leaves, if you don't, it leaves a really horrible edge, and I didn't know why I was getting this edge until sometime later when I sussed that out. So what we do now is we yarn over and we pull through one of those stitches. So that has made a chain, and I like to keep my thumb on that now and just complete my treble crochet. Remember, that's a double US, so it's through 2 and through 2. So we yarn over and we're going to go into that chain that we've made, and we're going to go through 2 loops of it. And if you can't see there's my my yarn over and my stitch. So this is the 2 loops that I've just gone into. And sometimes it's hard to see, especially with a fluffy yarn. So you can feel it and you can just slide the last one on. Got my 3 on the hook, so I do 1 chain, hold on to it, and complete my stitch. So yarn over, and again I'm going to go into that chain. Make sure that I've gone into the 2 loops, there they are. And then I'm going to do 1 chain and complete my stitch. And we're just going to keep repeating that. That's what it'll look like. You're getting a row of treble crochets or double in the US, and you're getting a row of chains as you go, and it makes it nice and elastic. So where if you would normally just chain that amount, it will be a rigid chain and you won't be able to pull on it. This will give you a cuff where it will have some elasticity, so you'll be able to use it like a cuff. So now we need to go into that chain that we've just made, and this one's harder to see because I've took my finger off and it's furry. So if you just make sure you've gone through one, there's the other part of it, just slide it on and you can easily see it or feel it. You don't have to sort of be quick about it. You can use all the time in the world just to find your stitch. So there's the 2 loops. I've just gone through 2. Do my 1 chain, finish my stitch, go through the 2 loops, and all together, for mine I've not got very big legs, so it depends, I guess, on the size of your leg or the size of the leg you're making them for. But I sort of worked out I'm making these for Gemma, and the fact that I've got disproportionately thin legs for my size, they'll fit her. So I made them to go around my ankle, so I needed 26 foundation treble crochets, but you can choose however many you want. Now remember, when you hold it up, when you've done your 26 and you hold it up and you look at it, it may seem that's way too big, but once you start making the next phase, we're going to start ribbing, it will pull it in. So don't think that it's too big. It's not. You want it to be nice and slippy. So you just carry on, and 26 for me was a very good size. I'll show you what I mean in a second. I'll get it now. When I made this one, if you can imagine, there's my initial row, and it always flays out a little bit because this row doesn't have the ribbing. So once I held it together, that was the size of it. But then I started to do the ribbing, and you can see it's pulled it in like a cuff, but it stretches so that to go over your leg. But obviously the leg will go in this way, and that will just be the ankle part. If that makes sense, hope it does. So you just carry on making your foundation treble crochets or foundation doubles until you've got 26, or if you are making them for a younger person, however many you think you'll need. It to fit around the ankle, you want it to be loose around the bottom of the ankle, because remember we're making a cuff, and it will get tighter. So I'm going to pause this video now, and I will pick you up again once I've got my 26. Okay, so I've made, excuse me, just move my drink. That's better. I've made my chains. So what we need to do now is hold it out like this, bring this side round, obviously keeping this at the bottom, and we're now going to keep the working yarn above and the tail at the bottom like that. Now we're going to slip stitch into the top of our first 2 chain. So there's the first one and there's the second one. We're just going to go into it and slip stitch to form the ring. Now this is what you've got, this little gap here, and this yarn is what we use to plug that gap once we're all said and done. So we're going to do 1 chain, and now we're going to do front post treble crochets. So I will show you how to do that. Now, ignoring this first 2 chain that we started with, there is our first foundation treble that we've done. We yarn over and we insert this side of it, go around the back and come up the other side, yarn over and pull through. So we've got our 3 on the hook, we yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that's our front post treble crochet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and see if I can show you so it looks more clearly. So if you look, you'll see through the fuzzy yarn, there's my next stitch. We yarn over, have the hook facing the right way would help, in that side, out through the other, yarn over and pull through, 3 on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So again, we look at the next one. You get much faster at this, don't worry. And you do the same again, insert, go behind it, come back out the other side, yarn over and pull through. 3 on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we just keep going until we've gone all the way around, doing the same thing. So yarn over, inside, up through the other side. You see that? Just like that. Yarn over, through 2, through 2. And we're going to carry on doing that until we get back to this join here, and I'll show you exactly what we do next. So I'm just going to pause the video and I'll catch up with you when I'm all the way round. Okay, so I'm almost there. I've got one more complete one to do. If you can see that, just see through there. So that's my complete one to do. And now I've got this 2 chain here and this one here. That might actually be a treble, yeah, that one is. And this is the 2 chain to start with. So we've got both ends. To pull them together, I'm going to go through that one exactly the same as if it were any other stitch, and then I'm going to go through the 2 chain, and that will help pull it together. So now I'm not going to slip stitch to join. I've gone through that one there, and I've gone through the 2 chain. So now I'm just going to keep going. So here is my first one here. It's slightly off center at the moment. It's going to pull together now, but I'm just going to insert like that because it's easier to insert rather than going all the way through. Just insert into the top part. You see that? I find that much easier. I also find it easier to hold it this way, like this, and go through it. It just pulls up nicely for you. Sorry, I'll slow down and I'll unzoom because I'm probably going off the camera. It's so much easier to just pull some yarn. Okay, so to just hold it like that and go through the top rather than going under and around, you just easily push through the top. And then I hold it to the side and I can see exactly what I'm doing. Now we're just going to keep going round now. We're not going to join our rows, chain up or anything like that. We're just going to go round in a spiral. And we're going to carry on until our leg cuff is big enough. So on the first one, you just need to keep measuring it. And what I did was, I'll show you, I don't think it's going to be really noticeable yet, but you'll start to see on the inside, if I zoom in, if you can see them very clearly, but there are ridges. You can feel them. There's a ridge there and a ridge there. And on the inside, that's what you get when you are doing a front post stitch on the outside, comes together like a rib, but on the inside it leaves these bumpy ridges, and I had 8 bumpy ridges, and that's how I know that for this round I had 8 on the inside, 8 bumpy ridges. So for the next one I need to make sure that I've got the same 8 bumpy ridges. Then I've got exactly the same amount of rows. But if the first one, you just really need to hold it up and make sure that you've got the right amount to go round, right amounts for your cuff, that it's the actual width or length of the cuff that you want. Going off the camera there, sorry, because I'm zoomed, that's why I forget about the zoom. So just keep going around just like that, and when you get to the join we just go straight over it. And don't worry that if you think it's going to, but the yarn didn't come around. Don't worry if you think that it's not going to, it's going to be wonky. It isn't. It works out just fine. Once you finish and you do your slip stitch to end, it works out quite nicely. It doesn't look wonky in the slightest. And I need to pull out some yarn. So that's basically all we're going to do. I just wanted to show you how I go over the join so that you can feel your stitches as well. If your yarn is fuzzier than mine, mine's not overly fuzzy. I'm gonna unzoom a little bit. It's not overly fuzzy. It's nice and fluffy, but it's not too bulky. So you can see it if you're, using it. But some of it is fluffier than others. And if yours is particularly fluffy, you can actually feel the stitches. You can feel the ridges. I can feel that one there. So all I had to do was feel the bump. And you can push your way in through the sides to go around the back of that stitch quite easily. Like that. So we've just gone over that join again. And now it's, as you can see, it's pulled it in by going through those two, through that one there and through that one there as we did. We've pulled that in. So when we come to sew this up on the reverse side, of course, we'll just catch this to the end of there and close that gap. So I want you to carry on working in a spiral until this measures the length. What you'll do is you'll put it on your ankle so that this part is at your foot, at the top of your foot, and you can see just at the point where your leg starts to go out is at the end of your cuff. So if you put it on, and then you can see right now I need to end off there because I need it to start growing. That's time to finish it. And for me, as I say, I had 8 of those inside ridges, and that was perfect for my foot. So I'm going to pause this now, and I shall catch up with you again once I've got my length as I need it. Okay, so I'm all the way there now. So this, when we come to this point, you can see this here. You can follow that stitch all the way up to the top. So I know I have one more stitch before I get to that point. So I have to do one more. Put my yarn in the right place. I have to do one more stitch, and now I have completed all of the rounds. So now I'm going to slip stitch, not there, into the next stitch. So now if I get hold of this and I just give it a little tug, there's no more disparity. It's the same, it's just like a cuff. So now we're going to start building this part of the leg to come out. So for a couple of rows, I'm going to keep with the blue, and I'm going to do one row. I'm going to chain up one, and I'm going to go into the same stitch. I'm going to do a half treble, which is yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 3, yarn over and pull through all 3. And I'm going to do that in every stitch around. So that should be, I think by the time I'd finished, I had 30 stitches. It's okay if you have 29. I think I had another one somewhere that suddenly appear on me, or I must have gone in the same stitch twice, but I counted that I had 30 stitches. The stitch count is not the important thing. That you just go in each stitch around with a row of half trebles. Now that's a UK term. It's half double in the US. But we're just going to do one row of one stitch in each until we get to the end. Now if it helps you, by all means put a stitch marker in your first stitch if you're not going to figure out where you're up to. If it's hard to see for now, just pop in a stitch marker, and then you'll be able to keep up with where you are. But yeah, just one in each until you get to the end. I'm going to pause the video, otherwise this is going to be a very long video, and I will catch up with you when I've got to my my starting point. Okay, so I've made it to the start. I'm going to slip stitch into this stitch, and this is the last row. I'm going to do this way, going to chain one, and I'm going to go into the very next stitch, not the same one this time. It helps keep the little seam straight, and I'm going to do 5, so that's into the next 5. Of course, I didn't have 30 stitches in the previous round. At the end of this row, I have the 30 stitches. I will put a little card up because I made a bit of a mistake there. So this next stitch I'm going to increase by doing 2 in the same stitch, and then I'm going to do 5, 1 in the next 5. Yeah, I had read the wrong row. I wrote this pattern on my phone, so as you can see, it's just in ways that I would kind of decipher it, and I read the wrong row, so never mind. So yeah, do another increase, and then another 5 stitches. I've just got to pull some yarn out. We're just sort of increasing because of the muscle in your leg kind of makes you have to taper up. So it's another increase after the 5, then 5 single ones, and then another increase. So it was after this row I had a 30. So just going to do a couple, and then I'm going to join with a slip stitch, but I'm going to change colour. So instead of joining with this colour, I'm going to join with the grey. So I'll insert, I'm going to cut off this yarn, move it out of the way, so we don't want to tangle up. And I'm going to get, oops, sorry about knocking the camera. It was winding a little bit fiercely. I'm going to get the grey. And I'm going to hold that with my finger on the reverse side, and I'm going to finish my stitch with the grey. I'm just going to turn it over, and I know some people don't like this, but I'm going to tie mine in a little knot. but you know, you can join your yarn however you like to. Now I'm going to work over the tail. So I'm going to do, excuse me, I just need to cool down a minute. I won't be, sorry about that. As some of you know, who've been with me for a while on my channel, I've not been very well, so I've got a bit of a temperature at the moment and it is extremely windy outside, so I can't open the window. And we've had one storm after another here in the UK at this time. We're in the middle of another one. So now I'm going to work in spirals again. And don't worry if you think it's going to have like a little jolt. As I showed you, just by jigging it, it does get rid of it. You can't see it now on my finished one. It's there. You can at times, all you have to do is pull it and it sorts itself out. It's not really very noticeable. So now I'm just going to carry on with that stitch for 5 rounds. And you can see the rows. It's quite easy. You just can see them. If you look, you can see where they are. So I'm going to do another increase row after the 5th one. So that's why we're going to do 5. So we're just going to do a half treble, working over the tails and in every stitch. And once we've done 5 rounds, remember we're not going to do a slip stitch and chain up and go, unless you want to do it that way, of course. There is absolutely nothing for stopping you do that way. If you don't mind the little seam, or you have that little, I know there is a little trick, I've used it myself, of like not having the seam or making the seam better, but I just prefer with a thing like this, with a tube, just to keep going round in a spiral. So if you wanted to do it that way, you could, but I'm doing mine in a spiral. So I'm nearly worked over the tail, or one of them anyway. It gets easier to see when you're not working over the tail anymore. That's it. That's gone. So yeah, we're just going to carry on round, and I'll do the first row with you. Again, nice plain stitch, because if I was using a plain yarn, I think I'd be doing a more intricate stitch, but because it's fluffy, any stitch would kind of get hidden, really. I like this yarn because it's not overly fluffy. You can still see your stitch and feel it. I know it's harder to see on a camera than it is actually looking at it, but it's got a good amount of fluff, I think. So I'm all the way round. I'm just going to go over it. Just keep going round. So I go over these bits. I always worry I'm going to pull my tail out again. So just keep going round until you've got 5 rows. I'm going to pause the video then, and once you can count 5 rows, stop and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so I've made it all the way round. So what I'm going to do now is, if it helps you to put in a stitch marker at this stage, then by all means do. What you can do, if you haven't got a stitch marker handy, just get a little bit of the other colour and pop it inside like that, and then you'll know where you are up to. So I'm just now going to do, just hold it there like that. So I'm going to do my 5 and then my increase again, that whole row, and just having that there lets you know when you're back at the start, so you don't carry on increasing, because you don't really want that. Just now it's going up that big part of the big muscle in your leg. Just get slightly wider at this point. So it's 5. That's 3, 4, and that's 5. So we just do 2 in the same one to increase by 1 stitch, just like that. And we're doing that all the way around for this one row, and that is our very last increase row. Now I made this in this subtle colour for this tutorial, but of course you can make them in nice jazzy colours for whoever you want to make them for, and whatever size you want to make them. Don't forget, if you've got a smaller leg or a larger leg, just adjust that at the beginning. And there we are. So it's 1, 2, 3, how many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start talking, lose count. So now I'm just going to do that every 5th stitch around, just for the one row, just like I did in the previous row. You know, what's the word? Increase row. Almost back, I think. Not far to go. Okay, it'll be my last one. I'll pull out my thing, my little marker, and now all I need to do is another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we've got 7 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we just need to do complete until we've got 7 rows of our grey. Change the colour back to the blue, and again complete 7 rows, and then I will catch up with you again and show you how to do this last part. So what we're doing is another row, or it might be 1 row and a little bit if I've not quite made the join. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, so I'm back at the start here. So that's 1 more row in this colour. Change colour to the other blue colour, unless you're doing it in other, you might even be doing it stripy. So by that, you know, just keep your stripes exactly the same. But we've done our last increase. We're at the widest part of the leg. I'll show you on here how that looks, because as you can see, it went, this was our first increase, went to here, our second increase to here, and then we start tapering in with the cuff at the top. So carry on making our last part of the grey, another little 7 rows in the blue, and I will catch up with you then and show you the top part. Right, so that was the last part of my blue, and I'm going to change colour to my grey again. So, and on to the last part. So I'm going to change colour as I did before, hold on to that yarn that side, slip my new one through, and annoy some people unfortunately by doing my little tie off. Don't have to do it that way, as I said before, you can do it however you like. So my first round is going to be exactly as before. Just going to chain 1, and I'm going to do 1 round of half trebles. I'll pull out some yarn. So that should be just as it was, as we have done all through. Just 1 row, going over the tails as we go. Oh, my tails are confusing me. Just going over them. 1 row, half treble all the way round. So I'm going to pause the video because you've seen this a zillion times now, and I will pick you up again when I get to this part. Right, so I'm all the way round, and the reason that we did 1 row in this grey colour is because I didn't want, when I started to do the ribbing, for it to look a little strange going front post stitch around the blue. So it's so much easier now. So now we're going to carry on working in the rounds as we did before, and we're going to do a front post stitch around that row of half trebles or half doubles in the US. So remember, this is a front post treble crochet in the UK, front post double crochet in the US. So this first row looks a little bulky at first because we're just starting the ribs again, but it will even out. Now I did these ones in this nice subdued blue and grey colour, but in the back of my mind I knew it was for Gemma, and I really was tempted to do them in nice sort of bright ravey colours or kind of an animal print, or to make ears on them or something. But you can decorate them if you wanted to. You could sew ears on them and paws or whatever. That would be right up Gemma's street, to be honest. But I thought, as I was doing a tutorial for you guys, I would just show you how to make them. If you wanted to embellish them in any way you want, that's up to you. So now we just go round in our spiral, just as we did for the bottom. Slightly different with the first round this time being the half treble. So now if I just break there for a second, not my tea, and I'll show you. It's difficult because the rib does really look like ribbing, doesn't it? It's lovely. I'm really pleased with that. But if I turn that inside out, then you can see the ridges that I was talking about on the bottom cuff a lot easier. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ridges again. So I've got my top cuff and my bottom cuff the same length. So just keep going until when you turn it over, each row makes this ridge. You can see the first one appearing. So it will be 8 rows of our rib, just the same as our bottom. And then you should have 2 identical leg warmers. But of course you can adjust this, as I said before, if you was making it for a child or for a younger person with smaller legs, or if you're a larger person with larger legs. You just do it, kind of measure it around your own ankle. And if you needed, some of us have big calf muscles. I do, for some reason. I've got quite good muscle tone, and other people might have much smaller leg muscles, so you might only need the one lot of increases, but I need 2 to get round my big boulders. I was once told a bodybuilder would kill for my legs, but I hate them personally. I think we're never happy with what we've got. But you might only need 1 lot of the increases. It just depends upon the size you're making, but normally speaking, the muscle does tend to start coming out, and then it gets a bit bigger at the top part of the muscle. So I did too. So we just carry on. We do that until it measures the right size, going round in a spiral, just as we did before. I'm now back at the join, so I just ignore that join and carry on. It gets easier from that point on because she's just going through the sides again, just as you did with the blue. And for me, I just like to pull it up with my finger, push it through. Find it so much easier. Hold it sideways and do that. It's easier still without a camera in between. but just there you go, you can see it start ribbing, starting to look nice. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back to you when I've got my 8 rows and I'm at the end. Okay, so I've made it all the way to the end, so I've got 7 rows and I'm back to the start. So this one here is my last, so I have to, did I go into that one? So fuzzy, can barely see it. So this is the last one, follow it all the way up there. So that is my next stitch, so that's the one that I slip stitch into, and it completes the round. And cut it off, leaving a nice long tail, and I just end off the normal way by doing 1 chain, cinching it down, pulling it through. Now all I have to do now is to close up, turn it in the wrong way, and close up these cuffs. And that's really simple, because all you're doing is closing this end to this end. So this is the stitch you're looking for, because it's the very corner stitch. And so you thread all your darning needle, good job I've got long fingernails, and I turn it around the right way for me. So I find my very end stitch here, which is there, just there. Make sure I go through 2 of the loops so it's not just a half a stitch, and I just close, there's the gap, close that little gap. It's hard to see when it's fluffy, but at least that means if there's a hole it'll be harder to see. Just the last one through there, and then all I have to do is to end off, and I usually do that by making a loop and then I sew through it. When it's, pull it down a little way, sew through it to pull a knot, and then I just bury this in one of these ridges like this, going one way through it, one way through the ridge. Make sure I go all the way through the ridge and not to the other side, and then I'll go the other opposite way. Just go the opposite way through that ridge. Just make sure I've not come out the other side. No, that's just the end of my needle. And then I just break that off. And I just want to show you that that completely closes that cuff. You can't see it at all. So then just sew in the other end the same way, just by working it through one of the ridges back and forth, and then you're done. So I'll turn it back in the right way and I'll just show you that I've got 2. I haven't sewn this one's end up yet, but they are, I've already measured them, so there's no nasty surprise. They are completely identical, and so same length, same width and everything. So I hope you like that. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll find out when there are new videos. I just want to show you this part. Don't worry, if you can just pull it, and it does actually close up. So yeah, have fun making your retro leggings. What should I say? Leg warmers. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now, everyone.